Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Andrew Yang, Ari Aster's Midsommar 2019 horror movie, and the need to shroud brilliance from the American public. All right, let's talk about it. All right, so before I go a step further, there are spoilers for the film Midsommar 2019 in this content. All right, so I am a horror movie fan. And there has been something that has been happening over the last 3 or 4 years in horror, where horror is being fundamentally changed as a genre, specifically by one movie studio, and that movie studio is A24. All right, so I've always been a horror movie fan, and probably started, probably with Friday the 13th. I think, you know what? I'm sorry, Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot was the first horror movie I'd ever seen. I saw it when I was incredibly young. Way younger than I should have seen the film, and I really liked it. It scared the living bejesus out of me, and I had I have a long history with horror movies, and I really love them. Right, so it went from Stephen King's Salem's Lot film to the Friday Night 13th. I Saw, right, and then. I think when I started seeing A24's movies, it really explained to me that horror could be much, much more of an art form than I had thought it was, right? So A24's connection to horror really starts at the level of them transforming the genre with the movie The Witch. And The Witch was about Puritans in the early, I think it was the late 1700s in America, and the concept was that there was this very religious father, and he had a family, and they lived on the edge of the woods, and there was a witch in the woods, and this family's baby was taken by this witch, right? And the movie just kind of spins out from there and goes forward, and what it does is it really establishes that there absolutely was a witch in the forest. Everyone in the family dies except the young girl who becomes a witch, and basically the movie premises that these witches are a traditional view of witches. Like, they worship Satan, and they totally kill people, and they're incredibly dangerous, right? Not the very, very American mainstream of idea of witches, that witches are people who go to Borders books and buy some New Age books and light candles, right? So, and when I saw that, I was like, wait, there's something really different happening here, right? Because the way the movie was shot, the patience of the film, the silence within the film, I was like, this is heading in a different direction. And it really told me, hey, horror movies compete with the best films, period. It's not like this is the best horror film. It's like horror movies can be incredibly great films regardless of their genre, right? Now, The Witch was good, right? But and it started that transformation that A24 has been driving within the horror genre. But the gauntlet was thrown down with 2018's Hereditary. Okay, with Hereditary, Ari Aster shows up on the scene. A24 essentially, has this world-class horror director. And he throws down a horror movie, the likes of which I have absolutely never seen, right? Now, one of the reasons why these films are really important to me is, horror is an important genre because it says, hey, what are the scariest things in life? What should scare us, right? Well, before I go a step further, there are absolutely spoilers for Hereditary in this as well. All right, so basically, so Hereditary comes from the perspective that there are people in the world who generationally worship Satan, and that they can work plans that will benefit them directly in really, really practical ways, right? Giving them fame and fortune, and literally trading the lives of other human beings for the service of Satan. Now, I'm an evangelical Christian, right? And the world is filled with people who are just think that, Satan is kind of a ludicrous idea and don't think he's real, right? Well, Ari Aster, I'll tell you right now, I don't think for 1 second Ari Aster is an evangelical Christian, but his view of horror is very evangelical Christian, right? In that he's fully recognizing that that Satan is a real force, and Satan is incredibly dangerous, and Satan's plans can absolutely be executed over the course of generations, right? Absolutely terrifying movie. And, you know, like, The Witch put me on notice that, hey, horror movies can be great movies at the level of any film, and that horror movies can absolutely transcend their genre, right? Hereditary was the best horror movie I'd ever seen to that point, and it told me horror really, you know, and it really also opened the concept that Scott Garibay, and really the entire industry, Hollywood, really didn't understand horror at all, and that, you know, the monsters and the jump scares and the, you know, crazy puppets, and, you know, like, that really people weren't really dealing with horror they were dealing with horror at the level of Halloween, like, ooh, you know, here's a ghost sheet, right? But that the reality is there are real horrors in the world, and you could reflect that in your films, and if you do, your movie becomes terrifying. It elevates the entire genre of horror. And so Hereditary really told me that no one really understood what horror was yet, right? Like, that we'd just kind of been playing at it, right? At the level of the Hollywood industry, right? And, you know, and I was really, and I have to say, Hereditary made me even more excited about the genre of horror, right? Because, it, you know, again, Hereditary was, you know, amazing at the level of any great film, not just a horror film, right? Well, just last night I saw Midsommar. Midsommar is absolutely amazing. It is by far the best horror movie I've ever seen, and the reason why is it surpasses Ari Aster's last work, which was Hereditary. Midsommar stands on the head of Hereditary and leaps as high as it possibly can. It is far, like, it's not the best horror movie ever. It is far and away the best horror movie, okay? And one of the reasons why is it brings so many messages, right? So I'm going to tell you the story of Midsommar as quickly as I can, and kind of give you some of the juice, like the really good stuff out of it, because I think that's the thing, is this is an incredibly valuable film because it has incredibly valuable messages. So before I tell you any of the story, I will tell you that the core message of this film is that humans have incredibly complex communication and relationships, but their base nature is absolutely simple, right? So, like, basically what really drives us are our passions, and our passions are so easily determined by others. It's almost impossible for us to see our own passions and to see our own motivations, but when we look at someone else, it's incredibly easy to see the motivation of another person, almost all the time, right? So I think that's the core message of Midsommar. All right. So Midsommar is the story of four American college students and one Viking ancestor. So the movie starts with four American college students, and there's a boyfriend, there's a girlfriend, there's a druggie, and there's a scholar. Okay. The scholar is a student who is deeply into learning about Swedish rituals, Swedish language, and Swedish history, okay? The druggie is about nothing but drugs. The boyfriend and the girlfriend are the core of the movie. They are, and the movie also is really the story of a relationship, and the lesson that when you are in a romantic relationship, it is absolutely critical that you end that romantic relationship when you no longer have romantic feelings for that person. And that if you delay, you will cause yourself tremendous pain, the other person tremendous pain, and most likely you will endanger others, right? I think this is absolutely true. I had a discussion with my oldest daughter about this, and she's like, yeah, that really found that to be true, right? So let me explain. All right, so basically, then there's this Viking ancestor. So the Viking ancestor is at this college, this American college, with these students, and he says, "Hey, I come from a really small village in Sweden, and we're going to do Midsummer Festival, right? And I want you guys to come and see these really quaint rituals that we do, and be part of something that's really special to me, right? The scholar is like, bet, I'm there, man. I totally want to see this. I want to study it. Let's go, right? The druggie's like, yep, I can smoke dope anywhere, right? So, and then the boyfriend is like, yeah, that sounds great. I want to go with you as my friend, Viking ancestor dude. And so he decides to go, right? Now, the girl in this movie, the girlfriend, right? She is an incredibly important aspect within this film, okay? So basically, she knows that her boyfriend is an absolutely irredeemable, terrible person, okay? One, just like the druggie, he smokes a lot of dope. So he smoked one, he's a dope smoker. It's a problem right out of the gate, right? Now, it wouldn't be a problem if he was like fully functional, but he's not. He's like in his third year of working on his thesis as a doctoral, at the graduate level, and he's 3 years in. The thesis was supposed to be done in year one, but he hasn't actually decided what he wants to do his thesis on, right? So he's lazy. He doesn't decide things. Oh, and then also his relationship with his girlfriend, he's terrible at it. He neglects her all the time. He doesn't come over or see her. He doesn't show her forms of kindness, right? He's just terrible. He's a terrible person through and through, right? And the movie opens with the girlfriend saying, "Hey," calling it one of her friends, right, another girl, and saying, "Hey, I think I'm leaning too much on my boyfriend, and I'm going to lose him." And her friend is like, "You should lose him. He's terrible. He doesn't care about you, right? He smokes a lot of dope, and he's really indecisive, and there's absolutely no redeeming values of him." And I'm kind of like, yeah, why is this girl with this guy, right? And then they show him. He's young and handsome. There's your reason. Done, right? That's the only reason she wants to be with him, right? So the girlfriend has really bad motivations to be with this guy. This guy is a complete slacker. He's druggy, and he's indecisive, right? And he's careless. He's really careless about his girlfriend, right? But the girlfriend realizes that this guy is starting to get frustrated with her because she wants to change him, right? She wants him to be more caring for her, right? She wants to fundamentally change him and make him into a person that he's not. He's not a person that cares for other people, right? She wants to change him, right? So she says she learns that he's going to Sweden, and then she's like, I want to go to Sweden. Now, they make it very clear in the film that she wants to go to Sweden, not because she wants to see any of these rituals or be with any of the people. She wants to go to Sweden because she's realizing that this boyfriend is going to break up with her, right? And, and she wants to stop him from doing that, right? And she realizes if he goes off to Sweden by himself, he's going to meet literally the most beautiful women in the world because the Vikings stole a bunch of beautiful women and brought them back to Sweden, right? And they actually point that out in the film. And she's realized, he'll be gone, right? Now, again, we looking in on this relationship, we know he should be gone, right? Like, she should not be trying to change him. She should totally break him up with him and then go find a caring person, right? But she doesn't do that, right? So, the Viking ancestor dude takes all four of these people to his Midsommar village, which is a Swedish village, and then they go through and they do about a half a dozen rituals. Every single ritual shown in the film is an actual real Swedish ritual that was done at one point in time in Sweden, right? They're all horrific. They're all murderous, right? And basically the film, and then what happens is that every single American, the druggie, the boyfriend, the scholar, they are all straight murdered by the Swedish people, okay? In these cultural rituals, right, which are not practiced, to my knowledge, they're not practiced in Sweden today, but were practiced at other times during Swedish history, right? They're all straight murdered. And the girl, because the guy does exactly what she expected him to do, and he cheats on her with another girl, is completely fine with the murder of her boyfriend and the murder of the scholar and the murder of the druggie. And at the end of the film, she actually has a big smile on her face when she witnesses all of their murders, right? And you're like, so you're watching this and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Like, it's terrifying. The movie is terrifying from start to finish, okay? Now, why is this the best horror movie ever made? Here's why, okay? So one, let me just explain the level, all right? When you're done watching Midsommar, you realize that Stephen King is a rank amateur and his work is pedestrian, right? Like, Ari Aster straight dunks on the best people in horror movies, right? This movie is not even close. There's not, if basically, as far like if you're going down a road, right? The best horror movie up until Midsommar was like a mile out from your starting point. This movie's like 3 miles out, right? And the reason why is, right, Stephen King and everybody like him, right? All the top horror genre players, right? All the major creators within horror, right? They have been using the traditional horror ingredients, right? The traditional horror elements, right? They have used darkness. They have used stabbing. They have used monsters. They have used the supernatural, right? Ari Aster goes, here's a movie that's more terrifying than anything you've ever seen, and it doesn't use a single one, none of the traditional elements, right? Here's the elements of horror that are used extensively in Midsommar. Sunlight, right? Festivals, flowers, community, and I'm not kidding. This is the most terrifying aspect of the movie. Emotional resonance, right? So basically, in the movie, they explain that Swedish people have this historical, cultural aspect to their society, where when someone within Swedish culture is feeling pain, the way that other Swedish people help them with this, right, is they practice this thing called emotional resonance. So basically, there's this one point where the girlfriend in the film is incredibly sad in the village, and all these other young girls come to her. About 6 or 7 young girls surround her, and she's just crying out in pain. She's like, ah. She's literally screaming in this emotional pain, right? And these other girls begin to scream with her, right? And they're asynchronous, it's cacophonous, right? But then all of them get to the point where they're sobbing literally in unison with her, and they achieve emotional resonance, right? Now, emotional resonance is something that you could use to help people, right? But Ari Aster's like, no. And that's the whole point of this film, is he takes things that are beautiful, sunlight, flowers, festival, community, emotional resonance. These are all aspects of beauty, and he makes them utterly terrifying, and he uses them to mix horror, to create horror, right? And when you see somebody who rejects monsters, jump scares, supernatural, darkness, all the traditional elements, shoves them aside, and then surpasses every horror creator with elements that have no business in a horror movie, you realize Ari Aster is absolutely brilliant, right? And his brilliance far transcends that of Stephen King. By the way, I have read about half of Stephen King's book, and I've seen every Stephen King movie that's ever been made, right? There's at least 30, right? I'm a huge Stephen King fan. Stephen King is a rank amateur compared to Ari Aster. He is, like, you can forget his work. Like, he has been utterly surpassed, right? And the reason why is, again, Ari Aster has surpassed King with elements that don't even fit into a horror film, right? It's incredible what he's accomplished. All right. Now, what's this got to do with The Price of Biscuits and Andrew Yang, right? Here you go. All right. This is very important. This absolutely connects to Andrew Yang, and here's why, okay? America absolutely rejects unshrouded brilliance. They reject it hard. America despises unshrouded brilliance, all right? It's very important to understand, right? Now, why is this important for Andrew Yang to understand this? Guess what? Andrew Yang is more brilliant than any of the people who are currently in the candidacy, right? He dwarfs the brilliance of everyone there. One, UBI is transformative, not just for America, but it could transform government across the globe, right? He's playing at a level no other candidates are playing, right? Now, how did he come up with this brilliant idea? He didn't just have a good idea. He's double Ivy League, all right? Like, the numbers are incredible, all right? 44 presidents, 16 of them came from Ivy League, all right? Andrew Yang is not Ivy League. Andrew Yang is double Ivy League. He has 2 Ivy League degrees. I'm not sure if any other president has ever had that, right? Which means he could be twice as good a president as any of the 16 that Ivy League has already created for American presidents, right? He is objectively, statistically brilliant, right? These are, the Ivy Leagues are the most competitive schools in the world, right? And Andrew Yang crushed it in the Ivy League, right? Not once, but twice, right? Andrew Yang, it's not a question of if he's brilliant. He has proven to be brilliant, right? And then he took what he learned in those Ivy League schools and he crushed it at like 3 different companies. And Obama was like, oh my gosh, this dude is executing at a level nobody's ever seen. Andrew Yang is incredibly brilliant, all right? But he cannot show that to the American people, right? So one, the American people are not going to be happy to find out that Andrew Yang is double Ivy League, right? Because it's just, you cannot show Americans unshrouded brilliance, all right? Now, if you think I'm wrong, let's talk about A24, let's talk about The Witch, let's talk about Hereditary, and let's talk about Midsommar. These are the best, so The Witch put everybody on notice that the horror genre is about to be changed forever. Hereditary slammed the gauntlet down and became the best horror movie ever created. At that point, Midsommar easily used Hereditary as a launching pad to fully transform horror and say nobody really even has understood what horror was. Horror genre begins now, right? The horror genre, the modern horror genre era begins with Midsommar. The movie is that good, right? All right. And so basically, and it makes every horror creator question if they even know what the genre is, right? So basically, but here's the kicker. These movies did terrible box office, absolutely terrible. America rejected these films in droves and did not go and see them, right? They absolutely rejected these elements of unshrouded brilliance, right? They're like, that's unshrouded brilliance. It's hurting my eyes and I'm turning away. And if you think I'm wrong, here's the numbers. Not a single one of these movies even broke $100 million, right? Basically, in today's American movie era, $100 million is a layup. Like, actually, increasingly, $1 billion is a layup for Disney, right? For a Disney film, $1 billion is a layup. That's 10 times beyond $100 million, right? But not a single one of A24 brilliant horror movies has ever even broken $100 million, right? And the reason why is Americans look at these brilliant films and they literally like, I have to squint. It's too brilliant. I can't look at it anymore. And the reality is Americans really detest unshrouded brilliance. They do, right? Because it reminds them of their limitations, right? And frankly, Andrew Yang is exactly like this. If you really look at what Andrew Yang has accomplished and how brilliant he is and the level of execution that he's bringing, it makes most people feel ashamed. They're like, what have I done with my life? I'm just like, and it's upsetting. It's upsetting to Americans, right? So the reality is, Ari Aster is an incredible filmmaker, but his movies, Hereditary and Midsommar, they make dirt. Like, actually, Midsommar made $4 million on its opening weekend. $4 million would not have covered the cheese used to cater Avengers Endgame, right? That is terrible, terrible, terrible execution at the box office. And the reason why is Americans fully reject unshrouded brilliance. They will not allow it in their presence, right? There are other examples of this. I think Firefly is an example of this. Firefly was the best, Firefly surpassed Star Trek, right? It was the best science fiction series ever put on television. America's like, nope, that's got to end. Boom, done. There were like 9 episodes. It ended in the middle of the series, right? Americans abhor unshrouded brilliance, right? All right, so here's the kicker, right? Basically, Ari Aster has proven that you can create brilliant art and that you can transform the game. Like, you can change what you're doing. Andrew Yang is Ari Aster. He is an absolutely brilliant he's a brilliant candidate for president, right? He has the ability to transform America and transform the world with UBI. It is a transformative policy, right? But, and here's the kicker of this entire video, I think that Andrew Yang may have snuffed his first debate because he was shrouding his brilliance. When you look at Ari Aster and you look at how horrible his movies do at the box office, and you realize immediately that Americans will not tolerate unshrouded brilliance, right? And so then you look at Yang and you're like, oh my gosh, this dude is crazy brilliant. He's more brilliant than any of the candidates currently running. We have got to very carefully and very quickly, he has to shroud his brilliance, because America will not allow unshrouded brilliance. So I am proposing that Andrew Yang purposely shrouded his brilliance in the first debate because he needed to, right? He's double Ivy League, right? This is a fact that almost no one is talking about. In fact, I've never heard anybody talk about it. And Ari Aster is proof that you can transform a genre, but you cannot do it without shrouding your brilliance, or you will have incredibly low numbers. And Andrew Yang has to very carefully shroud his brilliance. He cannot attempt to transform politics, transform American future, transform the future of the world, and leave his brilliance unshrouded. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.